Life is change, and you can be prepared. This is Sudden Money Insights, hosted by Susan K. Bradley. Financial advisors work with clients in transition every day. But what can you offer that other advisors can't? Become a certified financial transitionist through the Financial Transitionist Institute. We go beyond traditional CFP training to provide you with the tools you need to support your clients on the human side of life's big transitions. Learn more by visiting financialtransitionist.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to a conversation that I'm so fortunate to have with my good friend, Peggy Frye. So Peggy Frye, we go back well over 10 years, but before you were part of the Financial Transitionist Institute as our lead trainer and all, you were working with families, and you still work with families and with clients. And I'm kind of fascinated by that. And would you just explain how you started in the finance business? I think it was big companies in Manhattan, right?
It was big bank in Manhattan, private banking. And it was a great training ground, I have to say. As much as I was happy to leave that after many, many years and start my own firm and do it genuinely the way I wanted to do it versus the way a corporate structure wanted, it was a great training ground. So that's how I started. And when I chose to leave that and start my own firm, scary as that could be, I just called the family I knew and said, hey, I'm on my own and this is what I do. And they said, we'd like to have more of that. And because the big company I was working with didn't do any of it, I was doing it for them, but without the blessing of the big company. So that's how I got my start with one family. And we're going to have our 18th annual family meeting with that family this year. So it's been a long run. So they were a blessing for me. So that's how
let's go back to what you said that they wanted more of that.
Yeah.
And the big trust company structure. You were a private trust officer. Was that your title?
A private banker. And I dealt with trust and credit and all of the traditional stuff. But what I was doing for them that was different is they had come to me saying, we have money that our children don't know about. We've never told them, and I'd like to talk to them about it, and I don't know how. So I structured that first conversation with their children about that money that the children knew nothing about, and a family meeting. And that kind of cemented that human element with them forevermore. Because it wasn't just about the money, it was about talking about where it came from, why they hadn't told them, what was it all about? And it was really an interesting experience to go through. And I was new at it. I mean, I just had to figure it out with someone else. I had a consultant help me, and we figured out how to let the children know about this money. And the children were 30 and up. They waited a long time. And we structured conversation in a family meeting and let them ask all the questions they wanted to ask. And it was a beautiful thing. And it's turned into a 18, 19-year relationship for me. And when I left the large corporate that they still work with that large corporate, and I do too because of them, and went out on my own, they said, listen, we just want to hire you because you structured things for us no one has ever done. So that's why I started down this path, and then have acquired through various ways and referrals other families to work with, some not as long-term as this one. This one's been a long-term, and I've learned a lot. I often say I should pay them instead of they pay me, but I'm glad they pay me. But we do family meetings. Along the way, what I ultimately met you and learned the processes for individuals going through transition. And what I found was that an individual in a family going through a transition affects the whole family. So we really need to address this on a family level. And I also found that anybody new coming to me is coming in a transition, the family or the individuals. And I often start with individuals, and it works to a family relationship.
So wait a second, let's talk about that. So you said anyone coming to you is in a transition, but they're not all right in smack dab in the middle of the transition, are they?
No, but they're thinking about it. They want, let's say thinking about somebody that's going to retire. Recent referral to me was someone I had worked with, he and his family. And he called me and said, my sister concerns me. You know, she's 75. I don't know what she's doing. I don't want to know about her money, but I'm concerned. She's having some knee-jerk reactions. Will you work with her? So it's really very interesting. And her transition is, you know, she's getting to a stage where she works for a very wealthy family. She may not want to do that anymore. And she was having a knee-jerk reaction. So she's getting ready to think about the next 5 years when she backs out of that. And of course, the family doesn't want her to, and she's 75. So it's really an interesting case. That's how it happens. You know, you just get a referral, and this she was having some knee-jerk reactions and realized she needed to be more measured about how she chooses her exit from her job. So kind of an interesting one. I have a young man that was referred to me, son of another couple I've worked with that was somewhat, not really a family engagement. I was just working with this couple as the husband was thinking of retiring. The wife is disabled in a sense. Their son called me. He's making more money than he can possibly handle at a startup tech on the West Coast. And he says, I really want to plan in 15 years not to do this anymore. Can you help me do that? Wow. Well, sure, I can run all the numbers, but it's more about what are you going to do next, right? It's that human element. So those are the kinds of transitions that come up. There hasn't been anybody that's come to me that's not got something coming along the pike that they're thinking about. That's why they come.
So how would you describe the people that you work so well with and you love to work with?
I would describe them as people who want to be purposeful about their lives, and who they may not know this until we start talking about it, but they want their money to support that purpose. Those are the people I work best with. They want to think about deeply what they want to do and be and have, and work toward what that is and what that money means. And so I, fortunately, being in my own business, don't have to say I have a minimum of this. You know, when we were in the big corporates, I had a minimum of $10 million. I can't talk to you. I can talk to anybody. And if it's really about someone who has purpose, and yeah, they need to be able to pay me, but there are different ways to do that and structure it. And we can do hourly if we have to, we can do annual retainers, whatever, because it's my business. I can do what I want. That's the beauty of it.
That's a beautiful thing. And I know that that's what you were aiming for when you left the big corporate life. But when you talk about purpose, some people listening to this might think of purpose like a philanthropic intent, something that, or an educational or an artistic kind of endeavor that fills them with purpose. But not everybody has that. What other kinds of purposes are there that you come across?
Well, as I said, this young man who says, I don't want to put this grind in forever, right? I'm working X number of hours. I'm at the beck and call of this tech company. My purpose is to make this amount of money. And then maybe I want to travel the world, retool myself. It might be philanthropic, depending on how much he comes up with, or it might be just living life slower in a more measured way than he's doing right now. Right now, he's working for a high-tech company as a film production company on the side. The man's working 7 days a week. And he's single. Maybe he'd like to have a wife. Interesting concept. So purpose, thinking about what might be around the corner and how might I be purposeful about making sure my financial piece is in order and my human head is in the right space to do what might come next. And we don't know what that is always, do we? Right? You may say you want to live your life with purpose. It's about being gentle on yourself, about knowing what we've accomplished so far and that we have more to give. You know, it can be as vague as that, and we can figure it out from there. But that's someone who's wanting to step back and say, gee, I want to do this differently in the future. And it's a pivot moment in their lives.
Yeah. And you and I both know that it's not one pivot moment. There may be a couple pivot moments that would stand out if we were talking about, think about the pivot moments when before and after kind of experiences. But, you know, I don't think most people think of financial planners as helping them discover their purpose. They would think of going off on a retreat or learning some interior process like meditation to learn more about themselves. But I think that what you're talking about is giving people a safe space to wonder and to discover and to be okay saying, I don't know, but I'd like to know, and giving them time to do that, as opposed to saying, here it is, you said you want to do this, and now you have the money, and now you do this and this, and then you're there. Have you seen people achieve goals that they set for themselves and then be not really thrilled with those goals? They look around and say, like, really? Is this what I want?
Well, I can't say that I do, because my position is that we need to adjust these things along the way. It's not like I'm going to set a goal like this young man that wants 15 years from now not to work in that environment. We're not going to set a goal in 15 years, just decide. We're going to be adjusting each year. So I think what happens is something, he may meet somebody along the way and his life is going to change radically. If he meets, a new significant other, there's a lot of things that can happen. So I haven't seen where we've gotten to the point where somebody says, oh, this isn't really it. I haven't seen that one yet. But I've seen a lot of people trying new things. For example, the family that I've worked with for so many years, half of those kids in that family and spouses lost their jobs during COVID. It's been a huge upheaval in that family and in them personally. And we've seen people in the performing arts start to say, okay, what can I do next? Because I may be coming to the end of my career in the performing arts. I may be aging out or whatever. What can I do next? So there's been huge moments where we've had to sort of think about and work together on what that is. And it's not, there's no formula for that. It's just allowing people time to think about what interests them and where do I go next. And interestingly enough, this family meeting that we're going to run, and these parents are so astute in putting together a meeting for their adult children and spouses, is going to be about continuing to feel purposeful in a world that's swirling around you. Because when you think about what's going on in the world today with wars and, maybe recessions and maybe this and maybe that, everybody's feeling agita. And what we want to do, and we're actually using some of the process that you invented in financial triage to normalize the fact that this is going to always happen. The world's going to continue to whirl, and I need to still find purpose in my life and keep going forward. It's really an interesting concept, isn't it? So you normalize it, you name it, you normalize it. You remember that process?
Yes, I remember. I wrote it.
So we're actually following that in a family situation, which is really interesting. And I'll tell you how it goes, because I always try these things and never know how they're going to go. But to me, these parents had said, there was a time 40, 50 some years ago when we were before children, and there was the assassination of Robert Kennedy. There was the assassination of Martin Luther King. There was the Pueblo being taken. And my husband was in the service, and we were in the Philippines, and the world felt like it was falling apart. And we still found a way to be purposeful and make decisions and go forward with our family and have a family and live our lives. So they wanted to normalize it. So what we're doing is going to interview them and talk about that time. We've gotten headlines from the New York Times. We've got a picture of them walking in Central Park with him in his uniform. And we're going to just talk about it to normalize it, with that this happens over and over again in life. And I think it's going to be interesting to see the reaction we get. And we're going to have each kid talk about a pivot point in their life, not just meeting their spouse, but something more significant. We'll see, just because we need to remember that we're resilient. I think it's really important. So those things are fun to do that are not traditional financial planning. Yes, we run financial plans for everybody in this family, but we also go deeper in these family situations. So those things are fun to do for me, a lot of fun. And that sort of makes me different from a traditional financial planner, I guess.
Maybe. Yes, I'm more than guessing. But it sounds to me like you've set up, I would say, you've set up an environment, a relationship. Think of the relationship as an environment that's safe for people to wonder and to like a habit of checking in and seeing how is it now? Is there anything more that needs to happen? Anything I need to get rid of? Just sort of like a clearing. And it's one thing to do that with an individual, but you're doing it with a family unit made up of individuals. So I think you work with each of the family members before a meeting, not just, okay, we're all here and function as this group. It's both.
It is
an individual.
Yeah, it is both. And, there are times when I will speak to them individually more often than as a group, and particularly all year long. But once a year, we come together as a group and try to do something meaningful. And one of the pieces of that is that this family is a family that believes that a family that learns together, grows together, stays together. It's sort of their philosophy. And it's worked so far. We've got some young grandkids. We're deciding how to get them into that routine. And it's always a challenge with that next generation, but it's been fun to see what works for them because it's different than their parents and their grandparents. So I'm learning as well as doing to see what works next.
So in addition to families, you also work with individuals. So tell me about how that work goes. Do they have annual meetings or is that not necessary? What do you do with individuals to help them stay purposeful, I think is the term that you use.
So it's, think about traditional financial planning where we gather information and we go through and we take a look at their estate plan. The estate plan is probably one of the first places that I look at to help someone think about what their life means and how they purposely want to leave it when they're gone, and talk about the ramifications of that to their kids. It could be money stuff, whatever that is. And then the next question is, have you told your kids about this? Are you keeping it a big secret? And half the time, or more than half the time, it's a big secret. So why don't we have a conversation with your kids? Aren't your kids wondering, not about their inheritance, but that you'll be okay and that you've thought about this? And it's really an interesting opening. And that's kind of how it works into something bigger often than just working with a couple or an individual. It starts with really looking at, traditionally, the way all financial planners do it, everything that they're dealing with in the way of financial assets and cash flows and so forth. And then you have to look at their will. Do you have a will? And what does it look like? And how's that set up? And then you just ask questions. And it often morphs into something deeper, just if you ask the right questions and you're present.
And you create this safe space.
Yes, yes. And I also think that one of the things that we have been teaching for years, and I have absorbed, because teaching makes you absorb it even better, right? Is to listen carefully, deeply. And, a lot of times when we listen to somebody, something comes up in our head and they say, oh, but this, and you want to respond. And what I've learned to do is just listen and just shut up and let them say what they have to say and not respond, because it just always leads me into a deeper place. And we know there's more there. And just recently, it's interesting, even in my personal life, I have someone that I've known for 30 years, an antique dealer who lost her son in a car accident last week. And just being present for her and listening makes a huge difference. And I've learned that through these years that we've all worked together. It's been huge for me.
Yeah, we say that listening is one of the primary skill sets of working with clients. We say in clients in transition because we're certified financial transitions, but it's really all clients, or actually all people. It's being present and giving people that immense respect to let them say what they have to say, give them the space to think about it more deeply, and then align with them. Don't want them to be something different than they are, or to have said something different than they said, to just be there, be present with them and walk alongside them. Maybe in leadership and maybe just as a guide. So What would you say the difference is between your traditional work that you were trained in as a CFP in financial planning and transitions planning? Why are life transitions a big deal?
Well, there are those pivot moments in life that they can change the direction of life forever. And not always bad. Sometimes it's really good. And so to me, letting someone know, and that when I was going through a major transition, when I first met you, I didn't even think of it as a transition. You said, oh, that's a big transition. I was like, well, yeah, it is. I didn't even think of that. They don't think of it as a transition, and letting them be purposeful and think about that, gee, this is a big transition. There might be something bigger here than just this moment. And giving them that space, using process that you and this community have developed over the last 25 years has been monumental in forming long-lasting relationships for me in my practice. I don't take on a lot of new clients each year because I keep a lot of the old ones for a long, long time. And it's the way I like to do it. I've had the same hairdresser forever. I like people's relationships. It's who I am. It's how I'm wired. And I really like that. Whereas when I worked in a corporate setting is how much new can you bring on? That was not who I was. And so that was really important to have techniques, and transitions are that moment. And we all go through them, everybody, even young children go through big transitions. And so they are a time to cement relationships. And I think that's what's different about approaching it from that standpoint versus just doing the numbers and running. I can run all the numbers and oversee the assets, and I do a lot of that. But the relationship comes out of this other side.
So we talk about transitions as pivots, but before and after kind of events. And many professions are trained to focus on that and be helpful in one aspect or another, and financial being one of them. But you as a financial transitionist work on a little bit deeper level. What is it about transitions that is so unique or special? What are the opportunities that come with transitions that you don't want to miss?
Well, you want to flourish, right? Through a transition. You want to flourish into what the next best version of you is going to be. And so many people don't think that way. They think something has happened and I need to get through it and get on with my life the way it normally is. And when you give somebody space to flourish and reimagine what life could be differently, and that doesn't mean just in a widow situation where someone loses a spouse, but losing your job or having an inheritance or any of those things that happen, you can just pause and reimagine what life could be that would be really what's important to that individual. It's not just enduring the transition, it's flourishing through it and being the new you and imagining the new you. So that's, to me, what makes us different, because we're literally trained to think that way. And I don't think everybody in this profession is trained to think that way.
Thank you, Peggy. I see you do that all the time, both as a trainer, because so many of the people that we train that are in your cohorts are in transition themselves.
Oh, like 70% of them.
Yeah. And they too have that opportunity to see new potential, new possibilities, a new shift. It can happen on any level of life. But so with the people you train and the clients you work with, from my perspective, you're making life for all of us a little bit better every day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's really nice.
And I thank you for that. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you.